Picture this. It is 2026. You wake up, you have got to be at work, you have got to pick up the kids, you have got 1,000 things on your plate. You walk out to your driveway, you slide into your car, you put your foot on the brake, you turn the key, or you push that fancy little start button they have been forcing on us for the last decade, and absolutely nothing happens. The dashboard lights up like a Christmas tree. The radio comes on. The little chime dings at you. But the engine, the starter motor, total, complete, deafening silence. Not even a click. Not even a single lonely click from the solenoid. You try it again. Nothing. You try it 5 more times. Nothing. Your heart drops into your stomach because you already know what is coming next. The tow truck. The $150 tow bill that turned into $220 because of fuel surcharges and the inflation we have all been drowning in for the last 4 years. You watch your car get dragged onto a flatbed and hauled down to the local Stealership. And within 45 minutes, the service writer calls you with that fake, sympathetic voice they all train for and says the words that have funded private jets for dealership executives across this country. Sir, we ran the diagnostic. Your starter motor is completely burned out, and we suspect your main body control module has fried as well. We are looking at $1,000, maybe $1,200 with labor. We can have it ready by Friday. And in that moment, stranded, scared, late for work, you say yes, because what other choice do you have? But what if I told you that the actual problem with your car, the real, physical, microscopic reason that engine refused to turn over, costs exactly $0 to fix, not $20? Not $5, 0, and it takes about 15 seconds of moving a plastic lever back and forth inside your cabin. The dealerships making billions off your dead car want you to think automotive electronics are impossibly complex, sealed black boxes that only their certified technicians can decode. They are not. It is basic copper conductivity and a layer of carbon dust thinner than a human hair acting as electrical insulation. But as always, I am sharing this with you for educational and historical observation purposes, because the science of electrical contacts has been understood since Thomas Edison was wiring up Manhattan, and the Japanese have been engineering around this exact problem since the 1970s, while Detroit was busy laughing at them. Now, let me talk about the actual piece of equipment that is at the center of this multi-billion-dollar diagnostic fraud, because if you do not understand what this thing does, you will keep falling for the scam every single time. The component is called the neutral safety switch. Sometimes it is labeled as the park neutral position sensor, sometimes as the transmission range sensor, depending on what era of car you are driving. But the function, the engineering philosophy, is identical across every single Japanese automatic transmission since the 1980s. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Subaru, Mazda, they all use the same fundamental gatekeeper. Here's what it does. The engineers who designed your car, especially the brilliant minds at Toyota's Aichi Prefecture engineering centers, realized something terrifying in the 1970s. If a driver gets into a car, the car is in driver reverse for whatever reason. Maybe somebody forgot to put it in park, maybe a kid was playing in it, and that driver cranks the engine. The car will lurch forward or backward at idle speed and crush whatever or whoever is in front of it. So they designed this little electronic referee that sits on top of the transmission, mechanically linked to the same shift linkage that moves your gear selector. It has one job. It has to confirm, electrically, with absolute certainty, that the transmission is in park or neutral before it will allow the 12-volt signal from your ignition key to travel through the wiring harness to your starter solenoid. If it is not satisfied, if it has any doubt, it triggers the ignition cutoff. Period. The starter never gets the signal. The engine never even attempts to turn over. This is a safety system. It is not optional. It is not a bug. It is doing exactly what Honda and Toyota engineers designed it to do back when your grandparents were buying their first Corolla. Inside this neutral safety switch are a series of small copper contacts arranged in a precise pattern. When you move the shift lever to park, a mechanical wiper inside the switch slides over and bridges the park contact to the common contact, completing the electrical circuit. 12 volts flow through. Starter engages, engine fires, beautiful, elegant, robust, the way Japanese engineering is supposed to work. But copper has a problem, and Western mechanics either do not know or actively pretend not to know about this problem because it is the foundation of an entire revenue stream. Copper, when exposed to the air, the moisture, the heat cycling, the road salt creeping into every crevice of your undercarriage, the brake dust kicked up by the rear wheels, develops a thin oxide layer. And on top of that oxide layer, over years of normal use, microscopic particles of carbon, dust, atmospheric debris, and even tiny droplets of transmission fluid vapor settle onto the copper contacts. We are talking about a layer, maybe 1/10 of a millimeter thick, invisible to the naked eye, completely undetectable without disassembling the switch and looking at it under magnification. But to a 12-volt low amperage control signal, that microscopic layer might as well be a brick wall of electrical insulation. Before I keep going into the molecular reasons your car is sitting dead in the driveway right now, I need to ask you something. If you are tired of mechanics condemning your perfectly good vehicle over a speck of dust on a copper plate, hit that like button immediately, because the algorithm in 2026 is actively burying repair empowerment content like this. And every single thumbs up tells the platform that real people, working people, parents and grandparents and college kids actually need this information. And tell me in the comments if you have ever been stranded by a car that refused to even click, refused to even acknowledge the key, and what the dealership tried to charge you for it. I read every single comment. Subscribe and hit the bell before the dealership lobby gets this channel demonetized, because this kind of information costs them millions every single quarter. Let me walk you through the exact step-by-step playbook the modern Stealership uses to extract $1,000 from a non-problem. This is happening today, in 2026, in every state of this country and across most of Western Europe. Your car gets towed in, the service writer logs the complaint as no crank, no start, intermittent. The technician, who is paid on flat rate and incentivized to find the most expensive possible diagnosis, walks out, sits in the driver's seat, turns the key, nothing. He does not perform a manual shift sweep. He does not even check the neutral safety switch. He plugs in his diagnostic scanner, sees that the starter signal is not reaching the solenoid, and goes straight to the most profitable conclusion. Starter is bad, or the security module is bad. Or maybe both. Now here's the diagnostic fraud part. A starter motor for a modern Toyota Camry or Honda Accord at the dealership parts counter costs between $400 and $600. The labor to install it, because on some models they have to drop part of the exhaust or remove the intake manifold, is between $300 and $500. So you are at $700 to $1,100 before they even open the hood. Then they add the diagnostic fee, which they conveniently forgot to mention was $150 when they towed your car in. Then they add the shop supplies fee, which is another $40 for 2 zip ties and a dab of dielectric grease. Then they add the environmental fee. Then they add the tax. You are now staring at a $1,200 bill for a car that needed nothing. Absolutely nothing. The starter is perfect. The body control module is perfect. The ignition switch is perfect. The wiring harness is perfect. The only thing wrong with your car was a microscopic layer of carbon dust sitting on a copper contact inside a $50 neutral safety switch that the dealership will not even check, because checking it does not generate revenue. This is what I mean when I say diagnostic fraud. It is not that the mechanic does not know. The good ones absolutely know. It is that the business model of the modern Stealership is built on the assumption that you, the customer, will not know, will not push back, and will not understand that a $1,000 repair quote can be eliminated by moving a plastic lever back and forth in your own driveway. I have seen this scam run on widows. I have seen it run on elderly veterans living on fixed Social Security checks that have not kept up with the inflation we have been suffocating under since 2022. I have seen it run on single moms trying to get to a second job. It persists only because nobody is teaching the basic copper conductivity principles that should be common knowledge. So let me get into the actual electrical physics of why this happens, because once you understand it, you cannot be scammed again. Copper is one of the best electrical conductors on the planet, which is why every wire in your house and every wire in your car is made of it. The free electrons in copper move with almost no resistance, which means a 12-volt signal can travel from your ignition switch all the way to your starter solenoid, losing almost no voltage along the way. That is the design. But copper is also chemically active. The second you expose a piece of bare copper to the atmosphere, it begins to react with oxygen and form copper oxide. That oxide layer is thin, but it has electrical resistance that is hundreds or thousands of times higher than pure copper. In a normal high current connection, this is not a big deal because the current is high enough to punch through the oxide and the contact pressure is enough to mechanically wipe it away every time the contact closes. But the neutral safety switch is a low current, low pressure switch. It is only carrying a control signal of maybe 100 to 200 milliamps to a relay coil. The copper contacts inside are small, the spring pressure is modest, and the wiping action when you shift gears is brief. So over 5, 6, 7 years of daily driving, the oxide and the carbon dust build up. The contact pressure is no longer sufficient to break through that insulating layer. The 12-volt signal hits this microscopic barrier of electrical insulation and stops dead. The starter relay never energizes. The starter motor never spins. The engine never fires. And the diagnostic scanner at the dealership reads no signal at starter solenoid, and the technician writes up a full starter replacement. Here is the genius part of the Japanese engineering philosophy. The shift linkage, the physical mechanism that moves the gear selector from park to reverse to neutral to drive to low, is mechanically connected to that wiper inside the neutral safety switch. Every time you move the lever, that wiper physically slides across the copper contacts. It is essentially a self-cleaning mechanism, the same way the brushes in an old DC motor self-clean as they slide across the commutator. The Japanese engineers knew that over time contamination would happen, so they built the self-cleaning action directly into the user interface of the car. They just never told the owner that they were supposed to use it. So when you take a car that has not been shifted aggressively in years, a car that just gets put into drive in the morning and park in the evening with the same gentle motion every time, that wiper is only ever touching the same single point on each contact. The rest of the contact gets buried under dust. And one day, that single point of clean copper finally gets covered too, and the car dies in your driveway. Here is the exact procedure. Listen carefully, because this works on probably 90% of Japanese automatic transmissions built between 1990 and 2020, and a significant percentage of newer ones too, as long as they still use a traditional shift linkage. Step 1. Sit in the driver's seat. Close the door. Put your seatbelt on, because we are going to be moving the shifter around, and you do not want anything triggering the safety interlocks. Step 2. Without trying to start the engine, insert the key and turn it to the on position, the position one click before start, where the dashboard fully lights up, but the starter is not engaged. If you have a push-button start, press the button once without your foot on the brake, which puts the car into accessory or on mode without cranking. Step 3. Press the brake pedal down firmly and hold it there. This releases the shift interlock so you can move the lever freely. Step 4. The critical part. Grab the shift lever and aggressively, firmly, deliberately move it from park all the way down through reverse, neutral, drive, and into low, or whatever your lowest position is. Then back up through all those positions to park. Then do it again and again. Do it 5 or 6 times in a row with authority. You are not being delicate. You are not being gentle. You are mechanically scrubbing the copper contacts inside the neutral safety switch by forcing the wiper to slide across the entire contact surface, breaking up the carbon and oxide layer through pure mechanical action. Step 5. Leave the lever firmly in park. Make sure it is fully seated. Step 6. Turn the key to start, or press the start button with your foot on the brake. In the vast majority of cases, the engine will roar to life immediately. You just bypassed a $1,200 repair bill with about 15 seconds of wrist motion. There is no special tool. There is no diagnostic computer. There is no part to order. There is only the mechanical sweeping action that the Japanese engineers built into your car 40 years ago and that the Western service industry has spent decades hoping you would never figure out. Before you go, understand this. The next time your car refuses to start, before you call the tow truck, before you hand your keys over to a Stealership that is going to invent a $1,000 problem out of a speck of dust, try the shift sweep first. It costs nothing, it risks nothing, it takes 15 seconds, and it might just save you a month's rent. If this video kept even one of you from getting robbed, hit that like button, share it with somebody you love, somebody who drives an older Toyota or Honda, somebody on a fixed income who cannot afford the modern repair extortion racket. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell, because next time we are tearing apart another buried Japanese engineering secret the dealerships pray you never learn. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and never, ever trust a $1,000 quote without checking the cheap fix.